Hello, I'm the Jersey Concern. Today I'll be reacting to the Now first let me just start by adjusting my jersey for today. It is the 2018-19 home jersey for Arsenal, of which they ended up reaching the Europa League final in. Now let's get into the game. In the past 5 matchups between these two teams, Arsenal has yet to beat Tottenham. And they look to change their fortunes today, and they certainly were determined to do it. Despite missing their best player and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who was benched for disciplinary reasons, that gave them even more of a motivation to come out and put in a good effort. I'm a little concerned as to why that's the case, but going in, it was thought, how can Arsenal play in such a big match in the North London derby without their main man? But their squad looked competent enough that I was confident that they were going to have a good result. We start off with the fact that they had their fair share of chances in the first half, particularly Emil Smith Rowe early on had a very good shot that just went out the crossbar. And or later on in the half, they would also have a very good chance with Cedric also hitting the post. That seemed to be the theme of this game, both teams hitting the post. But we get on early on with a Son Heung-min who had to be subbed off, and in his place, Eric Lamela came on. And just as Lamela came on, Tottenham had the ball in the box. The ball got to Lamela, and he did his patented Rabona, which he did in a Europa League game a couple years ago, and he put it past Leno and into the net and making it 1-0. And it was a great goal, no doubt about that. And it's probably one of the best goals I've seen in a North London derby in a long time. Furthermore, as we got to the end, near the end of the first half, Arsenal kept the pressure on, and eventually Kieran Tierney put in a pass into the box. That was that Martin Odegaard just so happened to kick it through Toby Alderweireld's legs and into the net, making it 1-1. And Odegaard has been an excellent form of late. I think back to just a couple days ago when he scored that great goal against Olympiacos, and while I couldn't say more about his performance, the better he plays, the more likely that he is to go back to Real Madrid, and I want to see him stay with Arsenal, even though it probably isn't likely going to happen. But regardless, we go into the end of the first half with a 1-1 draw. Now, when we pick up back in the second half, Arsenal made a immediate substitution, putting in Nicola Pepe for Bukayo Saka. And Saka, it wasn't his day. I mean, he's been great all season. There's nothing else I can expect from him. He's only 19, for goodness sakes, and he's just so good almost every game. But I think they made the right choice in putting Pepe on, and it pay dividends. As a couple minutes later, he would pass the ball over to Lacazette, who had a very good chance, of which was ended up being saved by Lloris. But a few minutes later, in the 62nd minute, Pepe once again passed it over to Lacazette, who tried to get the ball, but was hauled down by Davinson Sanchez, of which was a clear penalty. Sanchez never went for the ball. It wasn't really even in his vicinity, and Arsenal was awarded a penalty. This is terrific news because Arsenal never really gets the benefit of the doubt when it comes to penalties or even calls in most games. So finally, they get a call for them, and to take that penalty was the man himself, Alexander Lacazette, who fooled Lloris and went the other way to give Arsenal a 2-1 lead. And Lacazette, I'm really glad that he got a chance to prove himself today. He's had a tough season. He hasn't played that much. He hasn't scored a lot of goals. And with there being rumors of him potentially going to Atletico Madrid, it was nice to see him get on the score sheet. Now going back to Eric Lamela, who just so happened to score the lone goal for Tottenham so far, he would wind up getting yellow carded for a challenge on Thomas Partey. And then a few minutes later, he received another yellow card for slapping Kieran Tierney, and ultimately he was sent off. And you don't you don't you don't often see that in the North London Derby, and it definitely affected the momentum for Tottenham as they look to shaking things up as they put on Dele Alli, who's been on very good form of late, and they really put on a good fight towards the end, particularly when they had a free kick in the 83rd minute that was put into the box and headed in by Harry Kane, but fortunately it was offside, so we go from there. However, a few minutes later, Kane himself would have a very good chance on a free kick, of which just so happened to be saved by the post, and that was a relief because that was a very good shot. And Kane is he's a he's a threat to score at any position in the field, and he would wound up having one more chance in the dying minutes of the game, in the 94th minute, with another free kick, of which he would end up putting high. And ultimately, Arsenal comes out of the North London derby with a 2-1 victory. I can definitively say that London is red, and it's so satisfying to beat Tottenham because this game means so much to them, and they really were determined to make that happen. And any win against their big rival in Tottenham is is that much more propelled because of how big the rivalry is. And this game was no different. It was a very competitive game. Both teams desperately wanted to win, and Arsenal came out the better team. And I vehemently think that they were. They showed that they were willing to persevere, and they went through adversity. You know, losing your captain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, that sent a clear message to the team that they needed to show up, and they did. And I'm really in, pleased with this result. But overall, at the end of the day, it's not that big of an accomplishment considering where Tottenham is in the table. Not too far off where Arsenal is. They're only really a few points difference now, as Arsenal is now tied for ninth with Aston Villa and only 2 points back of Liverpool, who they are yet to play again in a couple weeks. Of which next week they go to take on West Ham, and West Ham might be more of a formidable challenge than Tottenham, as they've been really surprising this season and how good they are. So anyway, leave like, subscribe, like, see more. Come on, you Gunners. Arrivederci.